I am so excited for yet another epic Rebel Radio conversation with my brand new friend, Wendy Nash. Welcome to the show. I'm so grateful you're here today.
Thank you for having me on. I do like Rebel Radio as somebody who's not very good at conforming anywhere along the line in my whole life is such a price to pay for being, you know, me. But I am who I am. So I love the title. And my company's called Kindly Cut the Crap. And I see on your wall you've got boss shit list. So I see that we are sisters in this.
I love it.
Before I go on, I just want to say there are two things I like to do. And the first one is I just really like to say thank you to you and your community. Like, we can think, oh, well, this just happens like this. But of course, there's a whole lot of people who've come on this show before me, and there will be more after me. So I'm one of many people. And I've spoken with other hosts, so you're what it's both
Mhm.
directions. So we're part of a community in terms of podcasts and guests and hosts, but also, like there's all the people who listen and who just downloading at the simple fact of listening changes an algorithm. And we're all obsessed by numbers. How we numerology, here we go. So we're all obsessed by numbers, data, data, data. And like those small things count.
Yes.
Every single thing counts, and everything is is part of a larger thing that changes everything. So just simply downloading, if that's the only thing a person does, that is already a contribution. And then paying attention, thinking, that's a little bit more. So just to say thank you to everybody in your community and your audience and downloaders and even people who have computers, and then even the people who make the mics and the headsets and all that sort of stuff.
Beautiful.
Everybody's part of this. So thank you very much for everybody for being part of this. And the other thing I like to do is I'm Australian and I live in Queensland, and I'm on Gubby Gubby country. So that actually means no, no, as in no, you may not come onto my country until you have been welcomed. But I'm not
Mhm.
Aboriginal, so I'm not going to go into that. I'm simply acknowledging that it's an Aboriginal tradition to welcome to land. To acknowledge the country you're calling from. And then, if you have the authority, you can then welcome somebody to the country. And the reason I do that is many things. One is I think it's really important to respect the people who've been caring for this country for 70,000 years. So Christianity's been around for 2,000. So we're talking about 35 times as long, if not longer. So that's a lot of time and a lot of observation, a lot of learning, a lot of thinking about how does community work? How does spirituality work? How does the land? How are we all connected and involved in this? And I think that's really important. And it's from that space that we can say, well, this is where we come from, this is where we are, and with those two together we can think, where are we going to go from here? So I really like to include the whole picture of the community in the past, the present, and the future. So thank you.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's really important as well to acknowledge all three of those. So thank you. It's beautiful.
It's my
So
pleasure.
tell us a little bit. Well, let's before we get into it, before we went live, I shared a little bit of your numerology with you, as always. And I'm curious, what was something that you took away from that that was interesting to you or that really stood out?
The thing was, you mentioned something about love and spirituality, that was a really big thing.
Mhm.
And so I thought I'll tell you this story.
Yeah.
So when I was about, I was really, I was not a happy, I did not have a lot of happy circumstances in my early life. I'm not saying I was entirely miserable, but gee, it pretty was for a good solid number of years there. Um, a lot of very difficult circumstances. And I was deeply unhappy and I was deeply lonely. Had very poor social skills. And
Mhm.
so I've had to learn those. So for people who feel like they've got really hopeless social skills and they're not able to make friends and they don't know how to make friends, let me tell you, it is possible to change. So I just want to give people courage in that direction. Um, And I was walking on the church and I felt deeply unloved and deeply lonely. And it said, it was the 70s, and it said, Jesus loves everyone. And I thought,
Mm.
Jesus is one person. I'm one person. Jesus loves everyone. I'm going to find a way to love everyone. Now, I apologize for the Christians who may feel that I'm saying that I am Jesus. I'm not at all saying that. I'm just saying that I sort of something clicked and I just wanted to find a way to love everybody on the planet. So I thought that was
Mm.
actually really funny to hear that on the numerology. I'm going, oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
So,
For my numerologists out there, she is a jack of hearts. So this is for the numerologists that are out there. They're going to understand this story very deeply of that jack of hearts just wanting to love the world. I love that so much. That's
totally,
beautiful.
totally.
So we know that you're a jack of hearts. We know some of your background a little bit, but who is Wendy Nash?
Well, I actually follow Buddhism, so that's
Hmm.
actually a really complicated question because there is no self.
Well, there you go. We like
There
to
is
ask the deep questions around here.
there is a character called Wendy, and she has these kind of characters. But in terms of unity consciousness, there
Mhm.
is no, it's all part of a larger collection, and this is one character in the same way that, like I look at the lorikeets out the back of the house, and
Mhm.
the rain, I don't know if you know them, they're green and blue and orange and red. You will have seen them. They're like everywhere in Queensland. They're like
Mhm.
sparrows, or I don't know, swallows or something, everything what European people and North American people have, but we have them everywhere here. And we have one in the backyard, and we call him Biffo because he's like a thug. He's such a thug. He beats up the Corellas. Now you won't know the Corellas, but they're like big cockatoos. And he's like,
Mm.
get off, and I'm going to protect my babe. So it's really funny. I had to get two bird baths because he was like so protective of one. I had to get a second one so that somebody else could use the bird bath. So, like that, I've got this character, which is the Wendy Nash character, which has this sort of vibrant, enthusiastic
Mhm.
energy, kind of high energy, expressive kind of character. So that's me.
Mhm.
But, like I said, I've had this difficult early life, and I needed a truckload of therapy to piece together all the complex PTSD. My sister died, my father died, I was bullied, there's a whole lot of other stuff besides. And I was just a one huge, great big mess. And I couldn't
Mm.
figure out where I was going wrong. And I was seeing a therapist, and she's very strong Zen practitioner at the time. And she said, you need to take up meditation. And so I really just went for that. I was
Mhm.
completely desperate, and I just had to go for it. And so I was also living in different countries, and I had lived in a few different countries by then. And I found that this was a way of integrating all those difficult parts and good parts to find that actually nothing is good or bad. Like, even if you
Mhm.
think about a shitty decision you made, really? Was there anything good that came of that?
Yeah.
Right. So was it good or bad? And you
Both.
think about, right. And then you think you did something good, and then actually some shitty things came out of that.
Mhm.
So what is good and what is bad? And so it helped me really understand that. And, I was a secretary, so executive assistant in, some really high corporate environments. And also academic and in hospital. I did a whole lot of things because I was such an unsettled person. I was always looking for something to make, to kind of feel a bit more settled, and work just wasn't my bag. That whole career thing wasn't my bag. So I,
Oh,
but I,
you.
but as a secretary, it's really interesting. As a secretary, you're a fly on the wall and you see
Mhm.
everything, and people know exactly what the CEO is up to. And so, what I want to do is, I want to really help leaders be kind, so that, and
Mm.
respect, like, I want them to be respected as leaders, not as followers, not as, like, I teach meditation to improve productivity, but I teach I teach meditation so that people will admire you, think you have a good character, you will make good business decisions, you will be a good leader. So that's my whole thing. So I
love
hope that that was a long answer, but
no,
I do like to talk a lot.
I love that so much because, you probably could meditate for better productivity and better results, but really the results come from being more kind and from being a good leader. I love that. That's so cool. So, Kindly Cut the Crap, is that the business name and that's what you do?
Yep. And I do that because, I am a direct person, as you can gather.
Uh-huh.
And so I cut the crap, and it's like cut the crap from the vernacular, like how we're speaking, and cut the crap from your life.
Hmm.
And just think about, what do you want? Like, cut the rest of it out. You don't need all that extra stuff. But nothing is going to work unless you are kind. So you can be like a CEO or a leader or whatever, not, a fantastic business. But if you're shafting people, well, like, people go on strike. Like, this is the whole Amazon thing. Jeff Bezos, he's completely shafted so many people, and now all these warehouses are going fully unionizing. And
Hmm.
that's because he's done that. So there are karmic consequences again. If you do one thing, that has a knock-on effect on something else. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so you touched on this really briefly. And as always, we ask this question on Rebel Radio because I get the best, most fascinating definitions all the time. What does unity consciousness mean to you?
So I had to ask this before we went on air. I'm like, what is unity consciousness? Because like, everyone's got a word for it, but
Uh-huh.
everyone knows what it is,
Hmm.
but everybody has a different way of putting it. So in Buddhism, you call it non-duality. And
Mm.
I actually spent the weekend with my spiritual teacher, and he's actually my partner's nephew. So,
Mm.
and I met my partner before I met my teacher. I've been looking for a teacher for 20 years, and
Yep.
I finally get it through my partner. So my partner and I have only been together for 2 years. I was like, who has Eckhart Tolle in the family? Well, it turns out I do, actually. And Eckhart Tolle, he has like brothers and sisters-in-law and all these cousins, like I think he's a single child, but he has all these other people. And well, that's the same for everybody. So whether you like people or not, everyone's got family.
Hmm.
And so unity consciousness, it was very interesting talking with him, and he was talking about non-duality and no self. So this
Hmm.
thing, and it's really the idea that, how to explain that nothing is substantial, nothing has a substance, everything is dependent on everything else. So nothing in and of itself has validity until we make it valid by its interaction. It's a hard way to explain it, but it means that everything is in this huge dynamic flux all the time. So I get a bit obsessive. So a few years ago, I was really, really lonely in a city. I was living in a previous city and in England, and I found the locals really hard to get. They're not a soft, gentle people, that what I could never figure out the difference between being reserved and being cold, because I really couldn't tell. And I just couldn't connect with the people because they weren't emotional, and I'm very emotional. So,
Hmm.
and kind of that's my currency, I suppose. But so I spent all my time just listening to teaching. So I want to say, for people in your community and your audience who find themselves in a really lonely place, take up a spiritual practice and really spend all your time as if this is a meditation retreat.
Hmm.
And then you're using this time to really deepen your practice. So that's what I had to do for sanity. So that's what I did, and I started listening to these teachings on emptiness, it's called in Buddhism. And I walked, after I was going, what is emptiness? What is emptiness? What is emptiness? I walked out of the house, and then it was just this very, I don't know how to explain this. I walked out and I realized that I was the same as the tree. I wasn't more,
Mm.
I wasn't less. I had equal placement, equal status, equal something. So, and and everything moved kind of around me and within me. If I made a step forward, that was a new set of options. And then if I took another step, it was a new set of options. So something about that, I don't know how else to describe it.
I love that description so much. And there was so much gold in what you just said. And I think one of the things that we have such a challenge with in mentally and intellectually explaining unity consciousness is that it's really hard to explain. It's better experienced than explained, which is why I love having the conversation, because everyone's got a different experience. And so yours might resonate, other people's might resonate, but somebody's going to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so good. So another thing that we love to talk about here at Rebel Radio is this conversation around wealth. And I am really curious how you define wealth.
So I've never been money conscious. I just never have. Um, to me, this is what I was thinking about this morning, actually, in my meditation, is kind of actually this very question. So I hadn't really consciously aligned that I was. So just for the community here, I was meditating about 2 hours ago because it's 8:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
um, so in case you're wondering why I'd been meditating in the afternoon, I wasn't. It was first thing in the morning. Um, so I've always really worked on the spiritual side and the happiness and kind of gaining confidence as a person. And that is very much what wealth is at one level. But you've got to earn some money. And I was really thinking, I really just want to have a decent bank account. I've really focused so much on the spiritual, which is fantastic. I feel like I'm just totally, it doesn't matter what I earn, it's going to be amazing. But I still need to be able to pay bills. And we moved interstate, and that's gouged the bank account. I've just signed up for a new meditation teacher training. And I don't know if you've heard of Tara Brach or Jack Cornfield.
Yes.
Yep. So they have a 2-year teacher training. I've been accepted into that, which is super exciting. But that's a bank account number as well. That's a gouger. And I bought an electric bike because we just moved and I don't have a car. So I'm just sitting here kind of going, wow, that's so much money. And to be honest, wealth means being able to pay your bills and not sweating it, not going, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? So I guess that's that. But I think there is also this, it's like there can't be this kind of anxiety about money, because I was really thinking, what is this number thing we have in our society? Because but I look at a temperature and I go, oh, so it's 27 degrees today. That's really lovely. I like that number. And I
Right?
like this numerology, but I don't like this time number, which says, time's up, time's up, time's up. You've only got 45 seconds left to go, 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 go. You're right out, right now. Bam! So eject button, eject. Something like that. So I don't like that number.
Me neither.
And I don't like the one which says, your numbers are there are too few noughts before the decimal point in my bank account.
Yeah.
I don't like that one. Here's something about wealth. All right, I'm going to ask you this question. All right. Okay. In the money in your bank account, who owns that money?
No one.
Someone owns that money. Somebody has it is the legal property of someone. Whose money is it?
Well, so I take it from the spiritual perspective that money isn't actually real. It's just digital currency in a Ethernet. It's not actually real. So I don't actually believe that anybody owns it.
Okay, except that when your phone is cut off, there's a problem.
Well, there's a financial exchange between me and the service provider, yes, but that money that comes into my account then moves out, and then it moves into a different account, and it moves all over the place. And so who could possibly ever have or own that money?
So it's the government, actually, who owns that money.
Well, I don't want to turn this into a political conversation.
No. I wasn't saying that. I wasn't saying that. I'm not saying that. But when you look at, in Australia on the thing, it says property of the Commonwealth of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that perspective, and I'm not talking about political donations and all who buys government. I'm not going there. So that's not where we're going. But like we can get really tight about money because it's like the noughts. I don't have enough noughts in my bank account before the decimal point, and how am I going to pay my bills? And it's like, well, who owns that money in my bank account? And it turns out that it's the government. So I've sort of got everything on loan in that perspective. And it
Mm-hmm.
comes in and it goes out, like what you're saying. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I was wanting to go in terms of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I mean, does the government really own it too? It's just a piece of paper that says property of.
And
We can
and
go so many different angles with this.
exactly. And to be honest, we're about to go into a cashless society, so we're not even going to have notes soon. It's just
Yeah,
pixels on a screen at the end of the
exactly.
day. Yeah.
Exactly. But I love that you brought wealth to, we've got the spiritual wealth, we've got health and well being wealth, we've got our connections and our relationships wealth. And that I love that you brought it to it's not always about the money. And yes, the money is part of wealth. I look at wealth as this wheel where we've got all these different segments. It's kind of like the wheel of life, where there are different areas in our life where we may be more wealthy than others. And it's important to balance that wheel out so that we've got all of the spokes of the wheel filled, per se. And having the money to be able to take the courses that you want, to play in the material world the way that we want, to give back in a way that we want. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And poverty, like let's not romanticize poverty. Poverty
Yeah.
sucks. No.
Poverty sucks. Yes. Just being spiritual isn't always enough. You also need to be able to play in this world. It's so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. None of
And that
this sacrifice.
and I'm reluctant to that, but
Mhm.
you know, that's just, and it's also something about white privilege, like kind of the society carries us, but that doesn't carry the rest of society. So it's also a white privilege perspective at some level, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard not to have that privilege when we are white. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But also
Exactly.
acknowledge the other perspectives that are out there
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
I love that. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, Wendy, I have appreciated having you on the show so much. Thank you for today's conversation. These shows always go by so fast. But as always, we end Rebel Radio with one last question. And I'm so excited to hear your answer. What do you dream of for the world?
Uh, you know, just that just that we could get on, I think, just be kind to each other. Like not hard, and yet so hard.
Hmm. Well, and in your words, kindly cut the crap.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Wendy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for being on the show today.
It's been lots of fun. Thanks so much, Cindy.